everyone, and welcome to our Saturday DIY live class. Joining you from our home that we are building. So today we are going to be building these step stools that you can use for that purpose, or maybe even use as a decorative plant stand or whatever you want to use, kind of multi-purpose. So I'm just getting my drill bits ready. So make sure you have your hammer, your drill, your, let's see what else, your drill bit. So I'm going to be using some ring shank nails. So make sure you have your nails or your screws, whatever you're deciding to use. So I'm using these ring shank nails. So it's kind of like a combination between a nail and a screw that has these ridges on here, so it helps prevent the nails from pulling out. So this is really good for anything that will get any wear and tear, such as step stools or stair treads, that kind of thing. And what else do we need? Make sure you have some wood glue handy, and we'll need some 3-inch screws. All the list of all the required materials and tools are listed on the DIY guide on my website, Instructa.com. So just make sure you have all those things before we get started. I'm just gonna look for the best drill bit real quick and then we'll get started. Okay, so I'm going to set off. So this is like a finished example of a step stool on this one, and on the one we're building today, we are actually going to be using 2x4s here and here. You can also build this with 2x6 materials, so you have a little bit higher step stool, or 2x8 or 2x10, 2x12, whatever. You can just make it a little bit taller if you want, so you can adapt these side pieces to whatever height you're looking for. So, but today we're going to be using 2x4 material to build with. So again, as always, the first step is just to, once you have all your wood cut to length, you are going to take your sanding paper, sanding sponge, power sander, whatever you have, and just quickly sand off the edges, just kind of where those, if there's any like pieces of wood that are kind of like splintering off, that way it just helps you so you don't end up with one of those in your hand, and so that when you go to finish it, it's a bit easier to finish because you don't have to try to sand into some tight corners later. So there's that. Thanks for joining me. We are taking a break next weekend for the holiday, so we will be back in 2 weeks with another project, and we are going to be doing these through June, and then we will see where things are at as far as continuing. So as far as planned, we are still doing in-person classes in July, but it's still sort of TBD. We'll see what we're up to. And I'm also just really interested in kind of shifting the focus to building projects into doing skill building with saws and other tools, and teaching sort of those sort of skills that you can learn on your own at home. So we might be doing that in July, moving forward. So let me know if you think that's a good idea or not. Also, if you are joining live and are building along, please just let me know. And if you need me, if I'm going too fast, just let me know. Or too slow. I probably won't go any faster. There's lots of pieces of wood and sand in this project. Definitely a power sander can go a little faster, but I'm not sanding the faces of my boards. You can do that as well, but I'm just not going to do that because the wood's already pretty well sanded, or pretty well, like, just good to go for a finish. So I'm just going to hit up the edges that were cut. Okay. All right, so we are done with the sanding piece. Yay! So from here, we are going to take our shortest two 2x4s in our case. If you're using 2x6s or bigger pieces of wood, just take the shortest two, and this is going to be the top step. So we are just going to figure out, if you have any knots, you might want to think about putting those facing down so you're not nailing into them potentially with your treads. So I'm just going to look at my wood real quick and see which face I want to face down. Also, the face of these, one side of these is going to be facing out. So just if you care about what that looks like, just take a look at your wood and see if there's, what you want that to look like. So I'm just going to go like that, and then let's do this way. So I'm going to do that, and then my wood, my treads, is going to go on top of here. So if you have clamps, you can use clamps to clamp this together. Also, I'm just going to pre-drill my holes, I think, in place like this. So you can do that where you just pre-drill your holes through the top tread into your I guess we can call these stringers. I don't really know what you call them in this application, but into your 2x material. So you can pre-drill your holes like this, with everything lined up, which can be a little tricky. So if you have clamps, that can help. Or you can just simply take your piece of wood, if you have a surface you don't mind drilling into, or you can drill off the edge of a table and do that. So we'll see how that works for us, and we might change our practice depending on how the wood moves. So anyway, you're going to take your drill, put your drill bit in, and then if you want, you can line up your drill bit to make sure it's just going to either go through the top piece or all the way into your other piece. So either way, and I'm just going to drill 2 holes on each side, on each end, so I can have 4 nails total per tread. So I'm just going to put some pressure down on this. If you're following along, do it this way. I've got this edge flush, got the back side flush. So I'm just going to make my 2 holes about right in the middle. If you want, you can measure and mark. You can mark from the end in. So this is 1.5 inches wide. So you divide that into 2 to find the center. So that's going to be 3/4 of an inch. So you can do that, and then drill your hole right there. And so you can do 3/4 of an inch from the end, and then from the face to end. So you're just kind of like making a square sort of with your measurement, but it doesn't really matter. You don't have to be very precise. So I did that side, I'm gonna do my other side. All right, so I got my one piece drilled. And from here, I'm going to actually take this off the side pieces, and I'm going to start my nails on the table so it's a little bit more solid. You can start them up there if that works for you, but I'm just going to do down here. So again, I'm using ring shank nails to help this stay together better over time. And I'm just going to get my nails started so they're going into the wood so they're not falling over and then not poking up the other side. So they're just in the wood, so it makes it a little bit easier since we are doing a glue up, that when you're hammering it won't move around quite as much. So we got those good to go. So I'm going to add some glue just underneath the edge of these pieces. Make sure it's open and clear it out. So you don't need a lot of glue, I'm just doing a little bit of glue. And then I'm just placing it on my 2x4s. And again, just making sure that's flush on the side and the back. And what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna put one nail in at a time right now. Since I want to make sure this is going to be square with the front piece, so I'm just going to put hammer the back nail in. Oh man. Okay, so yeah, another just always consistent reminder, having a nice solid work surface is always ideal. So one of these days, I will make myself one. But maybe not. Okay, so there's that side. I'm going to do the other side. Same thing, lining it up flush with the top piece with the side piece. And then the back, so on the side and the back. I'm going to apply pressure, so try not to let it move around. Again, if you have a clamp, that could be helpful. Just going to check it. So we've got a little bit of time before the glue dries, so we'll just leave the other two nails waiting to get driven in, and then we're going to add our next piece of wood. One thing I didn't think about to say was just look at your wood and see which side you want facing up. There might be one side that looks nicer to you than the other, so it doesn't really matter too much, but personal preference. This side up. So from here, we'll just line up our front, get close to where it needs to be, and then if you want, you could put a little bit of a gap in between your two boards so it looks more like you know, it could be whatever gap you want. You could have 1/4 of an inch, you could have 1/8 of an inch, just some kind of gap in there, or you can just put them all the way to tight. So one little trick you can do is put a nail in between your boards and just use that as a spacer gap. So whatever nail you're using, you can just use that as like a little spacer gap. So maybe I'll do that this time. And then before we pre-drill our holes, if you want to get real technical and square things a little bit, you can get your tape measure and measure your diagonals from each corner and make sure that they're the same number. So generally it's easiest to get a more accurate reading by what we call burning an inch. So instead of starting at the end of the tape, like starting with this hook, so there's some play in there, just starting at 1 and putting that on one corner and then reading the other side. And this is a small enough project where you can do this with yourself or by yourself or with a friend. So looks like I'm at 17 3/8 there, and real close to 17 3/8 there. So it looks like we are pretty square, so that's good. Shift these in a little bit so that we are going to be obviously things are going to move around as you're doing this, so I always want to double check things. I think this piece of wood is a little bit shorter, tiny bit shorter than the other one. Okay. So yeah, I'm not nailing it together yet, so I'll just get it. That looks pretty close. So I'm just going to pre-drill my holes. And then I'm going to start my nails again, just on the table. Okay, and then glue. This time I'm just going to glue on the 2x4. Just a little bit. And then put this back on here. And get some new spacers. And then do one more diagonal check. (17 3/8) and 17. Just a hair over 3/8. So that's square enough for me. And we could even just shift it over a little bit. The other thing to think about is making sure that your 2x4s are evenly spaced. So right here, a 16th under 15 inches, so 14 and 15/16. And here we are at 7/8. So that is a little bit narrower. So maybe I'll push these in just a tiny bit. Ooh, it's definitely not tiny bit. Oh man. So I think we got to be at 15 or 14 and 7/8. Make the match. Line up the front, line up with the back. So many things. Lining things up is like one of the hardest things to do. Let's see. Okay, so there. Okay, so we're at 14 and 7/8. And then back here we are at still 14 7/8. Okay. Okay, one more diagonal trick. Okay, so that moved a little bit. We need to move this way. I think what I'm gonna actually just do is tack in one of these nails, and it's gonna move some more, and then I'll make my final angle mark. Okay, I'm just gonna hit in this nail. Get everything square. Okay, 14 7/8. Okay, that's pretty good. So let's just nail it in. All right, and then get our spacers out before we can't. I think we're gonna call that good. Still move shift a little bit. I'm just gonna go more check. This is probably more checks than you need to do, but I like to make sure it's right before putting the other thing together. Okay. All right, let's do it. I'm gonna actually move to the floor so I'm not bouncing around. So if you are following along and your table's bouncy like mine, move on over to the floor. Step is done. Woo. So now we need to make the bottom step. So we're gonna do a little bit of overhang. I think we're gonna do this way. There's multiple ways you can put this together, so it just kind of depends sort of what makes the most sense for you. So again, look at your wood, see what you want to have, what side you want to have facing out or in. And so many options. do that. And that. Okay. So, same idea. You got 2 more pieces of wood. You are going to drill some holes in them, either on your table or you can use your blocks of wood as a backer. I set my bit so it's not drilling all the way into the other pieces, so it doesn't really matter where I put them. Okay, let's just do them both at the same time. All right, then time to start the nails. Okay. So I think what I'm going to do is take my back, or my top piece, and actually line it up with my bottom pieces and figure out where the inside step needs to be started. And then I'm going to take a little pencil and just make a mark at the face of that. Just so I know where to set this piece, basically. And you could just leave that in place too. Leave these, this all in place, because my back's lining up flush. My sides are good. And then, I'm just gonna see how this looks. So I'm probably gonna have a little gap again. So I might actually pull that off that line a little bit. So yeah, I think that'll be fine. Let's take that off. It's always good to check to see how things line up before you start nailing everything together. So I have a little bit, maybe like 1/8 of an inch overhang on this one. So I'm gonna do the same thing on the bottom just so it looks the same. I'm gonna actually put this one back here. All right, so I'm gonna do a little bit of glue. And then line up this side. Get my little overhang. Looks about the same. And then nail it in. And then my other side. get too far, I'm going to put, this is the spacer that's going to connect the top and the bottom. It's also going to be the width in between. So I'm going to put that just as a spacer in here so that we don't end up making this gap too short. I mean, if you do, it's okay. You can just cut this shorter, but I'm going to just kind of think about that right now and try to not let that happen. Use nails as spacers again. Have a little bit of gap between the treads. And I'm going to try to shrink my square right now real quick and see where we're at all the way to the back. So I'm at 21 and 5/16, and then it's 21 and a half, so that's a little bit longer. So I need to make that diagonal shorter, so I can just try to, oh, that wasn't really short. So when things aren't totally nailed together, actually, if I push that, maybe we will be at our mark. Let's see. Oh yeah, we're good now. Okay, so as long as that gets pushed in, seems like we will be good. So, start this side. And it's split. So I guess I'll just leave it for now. I might add some glue in there. That can happen. That's generally why we pre-drill, but sometimes the wood will still split when you're nailing close to the edge. Ooh, wow, that moved a lot. Okay. So I'm just trying to get my diagonals to be the same measurement. So I'm at 21 and almost 3/8. And 21 and, oh, that's a little bit more now. Okay, so that angle got bigger, so that's a lot wider angle, so we need to shift it back that way a little bit. I think our goal is about 21 and 3/8. Okay. All right, good. still square. Luckily with nails you can kind of do some racking on your piece at times, but it can be more difficult once your nails are all in. Okay. Looks like we are good. Let's see how the top piece fits on here. Okay, seems good. So now we need to connect these two together, and we're going to do that by using this spacer piece. So I'm going to flip it to the side, and then I'm going to make sure this fits between these. It's a nice tight fit. It's nice when you have tight fits. Then your wood doesn't move around as much. Okay, just gonna get this centered. There. So I'm just going to mark, so I'm going to take the width of my tread. I'm just going to measure that real quick. So I was using 1x4, so these are right about 3.5. So that's where I'm going to want the center of this to be. And that's where I'm going to start my screws. So I'm going to measure in for the back, 3.5 inches. And since this is a 2x4, half of that is 1 3/4. So I'm going to be measuring in 3.5 inches from the back. And then let's go 1 inch from the center. Same thing on the other, so that's for the top piece, and then we'll do the same thing on the bottom. 3.5 in the back, 1 inch from the center seam between the two, the top and the bottom. Okay, and then from there, still need to make sure that's lined up on the inside. So let's see, if we went in 3.5, and then we subtract half of the 2x4, so half of 1.5 is 3/4. So lots of math. 3/4 minus, or 3.5 inches minus 3/4 is 2 3/4 of an inch. So that's where this face of the wood is going to be. So I'm starting at the top. So we're actually up here, we're good on this side. So I'm just going to worry about this one side first because the wood can just shift around. So that looks good for this piece. So I'm just going to start pre-drilling for my screws. So I need to figure out what size of drill bit I need for these screws. I think I'm going to need a little bit bigger one. So you always want to make sure your drill bit matches up with the diameter of your nail or your screw. I'm going to make sure this is long enough. I'm going to try to make it longer to go into, so it's about 3 inches long, so I'm going to try to make sure I have about 2 inches sticking out so I can go into this as well, this 2x4 from the side. going to take care of this with an impact driver, so a little bit more powerful. Okay, got my star bit. I really like star bits. They make screws go in a lot easier and not strip out as often. So that's definitely my preference in a type of drill bit head. So there's like you can see that star or Torx. Okay, and we'll just drive that in. I'm just gonna double check. Let's make sure that's, yep, 2 3/4. Okay, perfect. So now I'm gonna line up the bottom piece. Make sure we're at 2 3/4. Looks pretty good. It's really helpful to have a flat work surface when you're building projects so that you can more easily line things up and measure. Okay, that looks good. Make sure these are flush. Okay. Or a friend to help you. Okay. Drive our screw in. All right, so now we're going to move to the other side and do the same thing. Right in there. Okay, let's see if that's good. All right, 2 3/4. Okay, perfect. Oh yeah, we're supposed to make our marks. So 3 1/2 from the back and 1 inch from the center. Okay, and pre-drill our holes. And then drive the screws. Okay, last one. So, oh yeah, before I line that up, we gotta make our marks. Drill. Okay, now we gotta line it up. I'm gonna chop this. Okay. A clamp or another set of hands again could make this easier for you. So if you have either of those. So I have to make sure my screws are flush with the base so you don't, they're not poking out. And then there you go. Finished step stool. So from here you can paint it or stain it. So I actually stained this guy. So that's what it can look like when it's finished. So yeah, all done. Thanks for joining me, everyone. And I will see you in a couple of weeks. Bye.